All right. No. Okay. Hey, everybody! It's Prince of Queens, and I am joined by Duerst the Wuerst and Spacepan, as usual, and this is the Gaytriarchy for the 5th of October, 2019. And just to give a little bit of backstory, actually, no, I don't want to get to the backstory part because there's probably very few people watching so far, and oh, I didn't even post it on Facebook, so I might have to stop Ooh, I don't know how to do that. That's fine. I'll just post it later. Post it on Twitter and Minds, and I boosted the post on Minds. Let's just talk about something for a second, and then I'll get into Durst's backstory of why I watch him on YouTube. And yeah, so okay, I'm a bit late because here's the deal. And does it say we're live from my page?
Yeah, we're
I'm
live.
looking. Is it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, I have a friend date tonight. I've started friend dating this guy that I actually met at the ICMI. And, he is a straight guy who, I don't want to tell too many details about him. I don't even want to say his name, just because, it's a thing that you don't do on air unless you talk to somebody about that. But he's had some very interesting experiences with women, and, it's hard to meet MRAs in your area. So we hung out a few weekends ago, and walked around and talked a whole bunch, and we talked on the phone, and then tonight we're going to go see Joker, and I'm very excited about that. I'm also very excited that I'm going to say the N-word account did do it, and the video is actually really funny. Did you watch that?
There's actually two.
Oh.
There's actually two accounts like that. So there's the one you're talking about, which was, I guess, maybe the one more people were looking at, where he made like a big dramatic video of it.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I was following, he just simply stated the word.
Oh. Okay, the big dramatic video one was really funny. So, yeah, I'm stoked about that because, personally, I think that, there's never the villain backstory. And, obviously, in contemporary socio-political literature, villain means all men. So, it's kind of nice. Where does the toxic masculinity come from? And I guess this movie tries to answer the question.
And I've heard that, I haven't seen the movie yet either. I was going to see it earlier this week, but my plans were complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard that it's very like nonpartisan too. But it is very, very funny to see the way the media is reacting to it. That the way they're trying to hype it up as some big threat. But last night I was able to watch the movie Cuck.
Oh, I didn't know there was that.
Oh my god, you have to watch that trailer. It is hilarious. And it's very funny to think of the movie Cuck in contrast, or even in comparison with the Joker, because they're sort of the same movie, like the basic of it, right? This idea that you have this like alienated person who basically goes crazy, except with Cuck, rather than it being like something kind of dramatic and artistic and something with a little bit of like reverence for its subject, instead it's the opposite, right? That this entire movie is just like designed to completely denigrate this person. It's basically like the artistic equivalent of like drawing a pile of poop and then like writing someone's name on it and saying, "You're the piece of poop." See, it's literally just like one massive "no, you," right? But for all of that, I will say that Cuck is actually, it's not without merit. It was an entertaining movie, and it actually. It was like non-arbitrary, right? Like all of the elements of the movie did kind of tie themselves together in a way that, for the movie's logic made sense. And it did have a little bit of a humanizing of the character kind of towards the end, which, sort of, I don't know. It wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be, but it was about as ridiculous and as hilarious as I was expecting it to be.
Did it tap into the whole like YouTubers are fomenting terrorism or like, you know, white nationalist terrorism kind of, like I noticed that sort of vibe in the trailer.
Yeah.
Like, did it tap into that sort of like bizarre connection?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What they do is they show this like loser and having all these problems and all these issues with rage, and
he has like 70 YouTube subscribers. Not doing.
And then he goes and he blames, you know, he's always blaming the women and minorities for it, right?
Yeah, I did see this. I did see this trailer. I should watch it. Okay, I want to see this. Yeah.
Yeah, I say that like there's a certain poetry to the fact that Joker and Cuck are out and available at the same time.
Like, wait, so where's Cuck available?
The internet.
Streaming it?
Just I downloaded it. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, who the hell is gonna be showing that fucking movie?
Yeah.
Like, it's way too niche.
Don't pay for Cuck. Don't pay for it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Huh. What have you been watching, Daniel Duerst?
What have I been watching? I don't know. Nothing really. I've been listening to a lot of that Negative XP guy. Just listening to like music and whatnot. Trying to like game stream like some Bloodborne and some some Doom and whatnot.
Is Bloodborne really hard at the beginning? Now I know it's like a hard game in general, but like I cannot figure out how to play it at all.
Yeah, they don't really hold your hand. You really have to just like grind and keep gradually leveling up. That doesn't really save you. You really do still have to keep dodging. Like, you just gotta get the dodging down because they can really, like, any enemy in the game can just one shot you.
Oh.
So,
okay.
The dodging is the big thing.
Okay. I'm thinking I might get the new one that is a shooter that everyone's excited. Borderlands 3.
Oh yeah. I got Borderlands 2. It's pretty fucking rad.
What do you use console?
Yeah.
Which one?
It's PlayStation 1 through fucking 4, yeah. So,
okay. We could maybe play together sometime. I have a PlayStation 4.
Oh, that sounds rad, dude.
Do you play Overwatch, Apex Legends, or anything?
No, just just like probably a lot of single player stuff. Actually, come to think of it.
Oh, okay.
Figure something out.
Okay. Yeah. So, anyhow, I was just gonna say real quick. I've been getting through Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood because I watched it when it was on Cartoon Network a number of times, and it was really cool. But, you know, like, you have to religiously watch it to actually follow it, because it's a soap opera style. And I currently have Netflix, and so I've been going through it and watching it. That's a pretty good show. That is a really good show. I recommend it to people.
Weeb as fuck.
What's up? What's up?
Is that weeb as fuck?
Yeah, but, I don't know if there's any buts. I mean, it's like...
Is that what qualifies? Is that what it has to have in order to qualify? As like...
Wait, what do you mean?
Yeah, he has a weeby.
I don't know, I'm high, man.
And then you were just talking about butts.
Oh, okay, butts. I didn't hear... Yeah, no, the thing is about it is that, it is set... So it's basically... a story that's about medieval, not medieval, it's like this alternate reality where instead of science going really far, alchemy went far, and alchemy is basically like a allegedly scientific version of magic, where there's like the formulas that make magical things happen, kind of. And so, like, the society is about as built as it would have been in, like, the late 1800s or so. Except for with, like, they have, like, robotic arms and legs. And And it's set mostly in the Europe part, but there's also an Asian part, and I think that's going to come up more in the series. And then there's this country called Ishval that they destroyed, but it's a sandy desert place, and the Ishvalans really, really hate the Europe place, and I think it represents the Middle East, kind of. So, yeah.
Is it anything like Final Fantasy VI? Like, some of that kind of sounds like that.
Kind of. Yeah. I think visually, yeah. I think so. Yeah. So
I don't want to use that fucking term steampunk.
yeah. I hate steampunk as a general aesthetic. Like, I just don't really like it. But it is kind of like that. But it's.
I mean,
it's not like steampunk. Steampunk is so cool.
it's mainly just a really cool story, is what I'll say.
I'm down, dude.
Yeah.
So I think Fullmetal Alchemist is actually like one of, I think for a while it was like the most popular anime, and I think Attack on Titan dethroned it.
Oh, yeah, which I still haven't seen the season 2. I know you can get it somewhere, but I don't have it. I don't know.
Well, yeah, they're up through season 3 now, and I think the series is complete. But yeah, I haven't seen the last like 2 or 3 episodes, I think.
Where can you watch them? Like, where?
There's what's it called? There's like the anime sushi thing.
So we don't need to go through this on there. You send it to me, and I will. I would love to check it out. So if you're just joining us, I imagine we have a few people in the chat in the audience by now. This is Duerst the Wuerst. He's a YouTuber. You can check out his channel. Sorry, I'm hiccuping. And he is somebody that I started watching because he would make videos of himself filming Antifa people and sometimes kind of confronting them a little bit. And what I liked about it, I mean, like, there's a little bit of that on YouTube. There's just a few channels do such things. But, I don't know, I liked what Duerst seemed like. Like, I just thought that he seemed like a person that I could hang out with. As opposed to somebody like That's the Point with that dude Brandon or whatever. Do you know that channel?
Yeah, I've been entertained quite a handful of times.
Yeah, me too. No, he has actually some really good footage and stuff. Like, I will not insult the guy, but I don't know if I would like hang out with him necessarily. Maybe I would be wrong. Maybe he would be really cool in person.
It's a little boomer con sort of vibe.
Well, that mixed with like thug kind of, like and
interesting combo. You'll see that. You'll see that sometimes.
Yeah, no, and I respect. Like, I'm not trying to talk about like
MAGA meets Juggalo kind of thing.
Magalo.
No, he was like a full on like lived on the streets, drug addict type person, and then he went to prison and turned his life around. I respect that. I'm not calling him like bad kind of thing. But sometimes his anger, like he threatens to fight people, and he did one time, like or once or twice. Like, I think that's how he kind of blew up. Like, he full on.
Right.
He
so that's how well, they were fucking with him, like, pretty legit,
he hit that one guy so hard. Like,
no, that's what's pretty good. Like, I always enjoy it when people stand up, either verbally or physically, against these cretins. Like, what I'd like to see is a SWAT team just show up and fucking disappear these fools into the back of a fucking truck. But, I mean, that's never gonna happen, especially not in Portland or Berkeley or Boston.
I really do think it is the paramilitary arm of the of the Democratic Party, kind of like the KKK, and like, it just seems so obviously coordinated, like, all throughout the way that the Democrats are clearly in on it. The far left radicals, like, raise money for them. and the media all just like acts like, you know, oh, maybe they kind of do bad things sometimes, but no, the real threat is the right, you know, like they don't really ever say anything, like basically turning the blind eye at least in terms of the cameras, and it just seems so obviously coordinated. And I, you know, the funniest thing, I read this Guardian article that is about how the media helped the KKK, because they kept publishing stories about them, and then they would make it really, really clear that, like, where there were chapters of the KKK and crap like that, and like what the chapter was called, and so people would like start joining because of that. Well, they did the exact same thing with Antifa. Like, Rose City Antifa has been all over the news, and everybody knows they got a Facebook page, you know, and it's like, this is interesting, you know? I don't think that's what the Guardian intended to imply. I think that they were trying to talk about the alt-right, but like, how do you join the alt-right? Like, what? You know, like.
Yeah, the alt-right is a term, like, in my opinion, most of the time it's just used to poison the well, you know, denigrate one's opponent, especially if like you're on the far left, you know what I mean? And you're like a bad faith acting, because in my opinion, most, if not all, leftists these days are just bad faith actors. Like, it's pretty insane.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you aren't formal conservative, and you know, formal as in like you have a suit and a tie and a housewife or something, then you're alt-right. Basically, like if you're cool at all in any way, or if you're young and like they could call you alt-right. Now I know they specifically call racists that, and you know there's actually truth to like a few of the people, but it is kind of like, you know, I've been accused of being called alt-right. I've been accused of watching alt-right YouTube channels, and they're talking about like Sargon or something, you know, so.
Yeah, it's bogus. I mean, I suppose, like, I don't know, you could click around from a Sargon video. Like, one could reason to the proposition that could happen, but it's whatever. It's up to the individual to fucking put their, you know, their thinking caps on and engage in a mature way with the content, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and one thing you can do, though, have you ever done like the synonym game, right? Where you start with a word and then you go to a synonym and then you branch off of synonyms and you try to reach an antonym, and you can totally do it. It doesn't take that many steps, right? So it's really just the same thing in principle, except through the YouTube algorithm.
Whoa! Somebody in the chat brought up Laughing Witch. Like, that is a blast from the past. I don't know if you guys remember.
Oh, I remember hearing about Laughing Witch. I don't remember anything about them though. It's been so long.
Oh my god, I can't share it on my Facebook, and there's so few people. This is tragic. Sorry. Keep talking.
I don't know, it's just some crazy, like, Dworkenite feminist who tried to ruin Thunderfoot, I believe it was. He's another old guard YouTuber dude. But yeah, just you know, just yet another example of a leftist just completely in bad faith. Just everything they said was a lie. You know, I think pretty much got chased off. I don't remember what happened to this person, but she's like an old sea hag looking bitch, basically.
Okay, I'm gonna try to mute my display capture maybe. Sorry, display.
Are you trying to show?
Yeah, because I want to share it on yeah.
Well, if you had like a background image on your display, you can pull it up in OBS to be like on top. You see how you have capture 3 as
how about I just go like this for a moment, and then I'm gonna share it on Facebook.
Well, I think you can click the little eye. If you click the little eye, it'll just make it invisible for a little bit.
Is it invisible?
No, right now it's visible.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry.
Here, close.
No. I'm pretty sure this is gonna work. I'm watching it. There we go. It worked. Okay. So
I wanted to say, I wanted to ask,
That
I
was
wanted
the
to
most
ask,
boomer way to do that ever. It's really funny.
I wanted to ask, is that the Nick Redding in the chat who went into a crowd of feminists and basically said, he's like, yeah, rape is hilarious. And
Oh, I think it might be because I actually just made friends with someone on Facebook that Brian from the Honey Badgers introduced me to, and I think it might totally be him.
that was pretty goddamn. I mean, that was like one of the earliest anti-feminist trolls I've ever seen, and that was pretty goddamn funny. Yeah. So
Nick Redding says hello, so I think are you acknowledging you are the same as the
are you
one?
the dude? Are you the epic gamer who did that? That was fucking. I thought that was just hilarious.
It is him. It's him confirmed. Nice.
Okay, so I'm gonna start screen sharing again. Ta-da.
This has turned into like anti SJW nostalgia hour.
Okay.
You guys remember what's his name? Good old man boobs, David Futrell. That was another one. I think he's probably still doing his blog.
Yeah, that dude's yet another example of just a leftist who is completely 100% in bad faith. Never tells the truth. Ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's. Oh, sorry. There's a lot of them on Facebook. Like, I was actually just talking to Chadwick Moore about this on the phone. How it's gone to the point where, like, if you go into a political group on Facebook, you literally basically can't tell who's a troll and who's not anymore. Like, and I mean leftist trolls, because they're everywhere. There's so many of them. And here's the thing: Media Matters, which is basically the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. George Soros, gives lots of money to it, and he's kind of in charge of it. They've been paying people to troll the internet since at least 2016, and we've known about it. Like, they paid people for Hillary Clinton's campaign, and that's where all the people who would just call Sanders supporters racist, or no, misogynists rather, they were paying for that, and because it was so obvious. Like, that's all they would ever say. They'd be like, "Oh, you just don't like her because she's a woman," and people were like, "No, Bernie Sanders is more progressive." So they never stopped doing that at all. Like, and it's actually gotten really bad over just the past 3 months or so. It's gotten way, way, way worse. And yeah, I was like, all of them collectively are people that just never tell the truth. Like, it's like, are you Antifa? No, I don't support violence. No, blah, 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 blah. And then you ask a few other ways, and then you're like, okay, do you or do you not align with the values? Do you think Trump is a fascist? Do you, things like that? And then they're like, oh, yes, well, fascism is bad, and I think Donald Trump is a fascist. And so if you want to define it that way, I am anti-fascist, but I'm just a non-violent. It's like, okay, so you're just like the internet troll propaganda arm of Antifa. Thanks for finally letting me know, you little asshole. Like, so.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's true. I mean, fucking liars, dude. A lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I have this article that perhaps we could look at, because I think it's kind of funny, if we aren't done talking about just here and there things.
Oh yeah, if you got the
article, it's backwards on my screen.
Oh, it says. So here's the thing. This is a person named Emily Pothast, and she lives in my city, and she is one of the most vile, like, dishonest.
This is backwards.
Oh, my name is Emily, and I'm a white supremacist. So she's like, she's gonna claim she's like a walkbacker.
No, she's not. This is actually kind of old. It came out in like 2017. It's just a good example of that type of like cringe SJW-ism that, you know, that's not really, you don't hear it so much anymore, but was really, really popular. Like, you know, there's just this like white guilt pontificating over, is that the word I'm looking for? Like, pontificating over their white guilt.
Labia gazing about, you know, their stinky badges and whatnot.
But ultimately, it's just totally self-serving because this person is a liar. She's all talk. Like, she says stuff that's blatantly not true. I've encountered her on the internet before, and she's vile. Like, she freaks, like she freaked out because I was saying that the season of South Park with PC Principal is funny. And she totally freaked out and freaked out and freaked out and she was trying to be a bully. Like, she was like just, you know, like trying to turn everyone against me and probably calling me a dude bro and things like that. But then she was interviewed for this thing about this band that was called Viet Cong, and another band that was called Black Pussy.
I remember the Black Pussy drama.
Yeah. And because I think the thing is that her gallery that she owns or something was having a show from one of the bands, and she was like, oh, I personally didn't give a crap about, you know, just some words, but I figured that we need to listen to the voices of the marginalized, you know, and protect the most vulnerable, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, you cared, I remember it, like, you're such, so that's the type of disingenuous person that we're dealing with here.
Dude, that's gonna get me going on how, like, ultra PC the fucking show scene has become, or probably always was, and I just never really noticed until...
What show?
Like, what's that?
What show?
Like the music scene.
Oh God, no, it wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't PC. No, that happened because it became cool to be PC in like 2015, and then Antifa became cool, so it was like authoritarianly, rigidly enforced.
Right.
And it's so like how do like music listening young people think that this shit is cool? It's so embarrassing.
In my town, there was a show I remember, and one of the opening bands, basically, like the local hipster scene leftists tried to run them out of town because they got a review on their latest album that these activists deemed to be misogynistic, and the band failed to disavow the review hard enough.
Oh my God.
That's literally all they did, and so a bunch of these like keyboard jockeys were trying to fucking run them out of town, and basically, and to add insult to injury, the drummer was like sick or something, and maybe about to die in a year. Some like
my God,
like that, and it was probably like the band's last tour or some shit like that, and it was just
that's messed up. Yeah, no.
So yeah, that was one of the pivotal moments when I realized like I can't really go to these like DIY underground rock shows anymore.
Oh yeah, no, I do not at all. No, I never. I used to too. I used to play at them. Like I told you, actually, like that guy Juicebox. I didn't play a show with him, but I went to his show, and he knew my former bandmate. Sorry.
Right. I've been. Wow, yeah, that brings me back to like sophomore year of high school for me. He would have been like 14 years old, I think. He was he was rocking like the Shorewood. Shorewood's a suburb of Milwaukee, and he was rocking those basements. Like some hip, high school kid with like hip parents would let them like use the basement for some shows, and I distinctly remember that kid like rap battling people. Like this would have been in like 2000 probably.
Yeah, no, I really liked his show. Like he had really great passion, and I don't really remember that much about it. I just remember that he was really an intense performer.
Yeah. He's got kind of like a Mike D vibe. It's pretty cool. Yeah, he's been at it. He's been like just at it constantly for years. Pretty awesome. Yeah, Milwaukee mainstay.
Uh-huh. That's cool. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like the Milwaukee scene, just the underground scene in general, just has acquiesced way too far to that political line. I think it just makes it unbearable.
Yeah, well, I mean, that'll be the death of it. It's not fun when that happens, you know? Like, it might seem cool now because, like, they have the... Okay, so it gives them the excitement of a music show, and then it also gives them a way to meet each other for protests and meet the people that you were with at protests, but that'll get old. Like that, you know, like when like the music part of it will die, certainly. And like, and I don't think that the Antifa protests are going as strong as they once were. I mean, there's been a steady decline since 2016 or 2017. 17 was the peak of it. What you're saying that there is a lot of it?
It seems like there is somewhat of a decline of it, but yeah, there is still some. Like definitely in Portland, you know, anytime right wingers want to publicly organize, and yeah, not enough discussion is devoted to how like these like sleazy dive bars and DIY shows are in fact like Antifa meeting grounds. Like nobody really talks about that. You know, like, you know what I'm talking about? Like,
I know, I exactly do. But you know, one of the things, there's a channel that was called Operation Cold Front, and they changed the name to like Black Box or something like that. Right. Yeah, they talk about that a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, they talk about that. Well, maybe they didn't really talk about that explicitly. Like I know that you would actually know about that. I don't know if they actually know about that culture, really.
But they went to like a DIY bar or like a dive bar venue.
Yeah, the comment.
Right, in Seattle. Right, I remember that video.
Yeah.
And it was basically it was because they were doing like a hugs, like Trump supporter hugs sign or something like that.
Yeah, what they do is actually beautiful. Like, they're really good at connecting with people and getting them to, like, you know, give them a hug and talk. And, you know, there's all sorts of people that are interested in talking to them. And the Antifas hate that, you know?
Right. And so it was that innocuous. Like, you know, probably a little bit 2015. You know what I mean? Like a Kekistan Chatelet kind of thing, but it is pretty innocuous. It doesn't really call for them to get all like burly with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I mean, the thing that they're scared. I mean, these are people that know that they have unappealing politics, and I mean, I don't know exactly why they do it. You know, because I really don't. It's just something that never has really crossed my mind. I mean, I know that George Soros does literally pay some of the organizers. We know that. And I mean, that was only caught in one instance, but we don't know how much it goes on. So we don't know for a fact what is... Like, maybe these people really, really believe in communism. I don't know. And they see this as an obstacle because they worry, you know, if people vote for Republicans or even more centrist Democrats, what's going to happen to their movement?
Yeah, they'll probably get defunded, perhaps.
Yeah.
You know, like the teachers' unions won't get as much emphasis, won't get as much backing, which is another hitting ground for a lot of this radicalism, a lot of the indoctrination, a lot of the things people are pre-programmed walking around believing, like, you know, like women are always oppressed, kind of thing.
Oh,
like
yeah. Or the United States was founded on genocide and white supremacy, when really, actually, like, less individual slaves were brought to the 13 colonies than just the little island of Cuba. And actually, there were twice as like not twice, but no, I think over twice as many brought to Cuba. Slavery numerically was mostly a Caribbean and South American thing, and like, I mean, aside from Canada, there's the least amount of slaves that were brought to the United States, and we were the third in the world to make slavery illegal. So it's like, there's not, and it's still, I don't know, entirely illegal, because, like, it's supposed to be internationally illegal, but there's more slaves now than in human history. So this idea, and with the Native Americans, there's no credible allegations that people actually purposefully spread diseases. There's only one attempt that doesn't even look like it actually worked, and it was a mercenary who did that, who was defending a fort for the British.
Are there people out there? Are there people out there accusing people of that?
Yeah, it's in that.
It's the whole smallpox blanket narrative,
Yeah, no,
it's like intentional, like the intent of it.
Yes, like they just kept around a bunch of smallpox blankets in a warm temperature, and would occasionally sacrifice a pig to them or something, to keep them alive, and then, it's a new tribe, let's give it to them. And it says that, have you ever heard of that book, A People's History of the United States?
That Howard Zinn?
Yeah. Well, Howard Zinn's a communist.
Right.
And that book was, like, taught at my high school. I went to a really far leftist school, though. But, like, everybody, like, all the dumb hippie kids that, like, were, like, trying to be activists that I just thought were idiots, they would always be like, so, will you come to this protest? Blah, 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 blah. We're protesting, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, that's not an issue that matters to me. And they're like, well, one of the reasons this matters is because blah, blah, blah. By the way, you should really read A People's History of the United States. So I never did, because I was like, you guys are, like, the dumbest people. I'm not gonna, like, whatever is your favorite book, I'm sure I'm gonna hate. So,
book.
What?
By the way, the article on the screen is backwards.
Is it? Why? How is that? Like, why is that? Maybe.
I have no fucking idea.
Okay, well, how about I just read it and we'll look at the pictures together?
Well, wait a minute. Do you want to read this article, or do you want to read the actual essay?
What do you mean?
Well, the article links to Emily's essay.
Emily's
essay might be more entertaining.
No, it is. Okay, so read the essay. It is. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's called True Confessions of a White Supremacist.
That's what I knew it. Yeah.
Hello, Internet. My name is Emily, and I'm a white supremacist.
Wait, I want to read it.
Okay.
Now I already have your voice in my head. So, hello, Internet. My name is Emily, and I'm a white supremacist. I know you might find this revelation upsetting, but before you start taking me to task, please allow me to explain what I mean by that. I don't mean that I believe white people are inherently superior to black people, or anyone else for that matter. I believe that empathy is the highest human quality, and that privilege is one of the greatest obstacles to empathy because it allows us to ignore or rationalize the suffering of peoples whose experiences are different from our own. By this measure...
you're so awesome.
I know, it's like the most painful, like, white girl virtue signaling. Like, she was like, I'm gonna degrade myself the most. Like, I'm gonna be the ultimate, like, shoving crap, or pulling crap out of my ass and shoving it in my mouth and saying, it tastes good, it tastes good, it tastes good. Kind of piece of person that you could be. Okay, so experiences are different from our own. By this measure, the more privilege you have, the more challenging it is for you to be good. I don't know. Is that true, guys?
This is just mathematics here, okay, folks? This is science.
Well, the thing is, though, what she's described here, it's actually kind of an evergreen or a perennial issue in SJWism, which is that your privilege makes you disadvantaged. And you can apply this to just about anything, right? People will say, "Oh, well, since I was poor, I had to work really hard, and I'm able to produce things by myself, and I was very motivated, right?" So it's like, okay,
Oh yeah, no,
I guess
they
rich
call
people
that
are not privileged, you know?
they call that their resilience.
Isn't that
Right,
sort of
right.
isn't that sort of a boomer bootstraps narrative? So almost.
Yeah, it is. They don't even know it.
Well, and the other thing too is, for example, they'll argue, and this is an ancient argument. This argument's like a century old. That if you start off very, very low, then you have a potential to rise. Whereas if you don't start off that low, you don't have that potential. And then there's the epistemic privilege narrative, right? Anytime you make an argument for privilege, you're simultaneously making an argument toward the disadvantage. But since they can't mentally like view something as being like having a pile of positives and negatives, right? That's too complex for them. They never notice this, and that's why you create these little paradoxes all the time.
Oh.
Anyway, that's a little tangent, sorry.
No, thank you. So, I believe in the mission of the hashtag Black Lives Matter movement. As a white ally, I believe that it's my job to engage in uncomfortable conversations with other white people about racism. Instead of actually, like, not being a racist, which I don't think she's not. I think she only hangs out with white people because I've seen her by hand. I've seen photos of them. Anyhow,
the funny thing is, all these hipsters have, pretty much their entire lives have had the option to reside near or hang out with minority people, but every time you'll see them choose the opposite. Like, they'll always choose white.
No, like, in Seattle, a lot of people actually live in, like, in an area that's very, very close to the black neighborhood. It's the Central District, and there's still black people in the Central District, though not like it used to be at all. It used to be like a black neighborhood, and they would get very mad if white people started moving in. Now the white people are there, but there's still some black people.
That's the gentrified hipster area of...
Yeah, but they don't... It's not like they hang out with them. They walk to the, like, hipster area and hang out with white people. That's what they do. So
the next part of this is even funnier, though.
Okay, so as a white ally, I believe that it's my job to engage in uncomfortable conversations with other people about racism, taking whatever pressure I can off people of color who are constantly called upon to educate the rest of us about the nuances of oppression. And most of all...
Called upon, anointed. I was the chosen one.
Yeah. It's like I appointed myself the ambassador to black people. Just so you know.
And that's the thing. Yeah, she phrases it as, black people are called upon to educate people about racism, but thank God I'm here to take that pressure off, right? Because she wants to lecture people about race, so she decides, this is the avenue of how to do that. And I understand. Black people just constantly, every day, everyone's like, hey, can you spare a moment to tell me about the black experience and what it's like? And right, like as if black people who are like into this SJW, Black Lives Matter stuff, like of course they love that crap, like they resent white people who like step in and try to like
they call it
it as taking pressure off them.
No, this is the most white-splaining essay in the world. Exactly. And I want to point out that it only has. Oh, is it still backwards, by the way? It must not be.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. She does clarify. She says, and most of all, I believe it's my job to shut up and listen when black people take the time to tell me about things I'll never experience, so that their insight isn't lost on me.
Oh, okay, check. A+. You're the best white ally. But I just want to clarify.
No, but she's good.
Hold on.
She's racing her own.
Oh God, she's really good. She's even a step ahead of me. No, but I just want to point out that this only has 119 waves to it, claps, which means and she could have got all of those from her friends because her band is pretty popular. And Oh, and by the way, she sings and like plays a little keyboard, and then there's like 6 dudes that do everything. I'm sure, just so you know, it's that kind of band. And she probably, is holding them all hostage in some way or another. But, if you look at Medium, like, the cringier the article, usually the more claps it has. Like, it'll have 4,000 or something, even though it's just trash. But, okay. So you can read the next part.
Do I deserve a cookie? Better hold on to it for now, because nothing I have said here changes the fact that I am a white supremacist. How am I a white supremacist? Well, I was born and raised in the United States of America, a country built by slave labor on stolen land, and every privilege I've ever enjoyed has come at the expense of someone else's oppression. The education I received was white supremacist education.
Sorry, go back. I said men's oppression. But
yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean,
no. Yeah, could you imagine her making this same article, but like I'm a female supremacist?
Yeah. I could write it for her. Wait, no, hold on. Hey. Oh, sorry. Okay, I thought you were going back to reading. Yeah. Suddenly the self-flagellation is less attractive. But I could write it for her to take that burden off of her, because I'm sure she gets asked all the time to explain female supremacy to people.
Yeah, let's take the burden off. We'll explain.
Okay.
She says, the education I received was white supremacist education, from its demand that I learn to write and speak proper English, to its reliance on a literary, scientific, and artistic canon comprised of and curated almost exclusively by white men. My aesthetic tastes are permeated with subtle coding that extends subconscious preferences to those who look like me and communicate themselves in a way I can identify with. I have interjected my unwarranted opinion into conversations that are out of my lane, and I have chosen to look the other way rather than confront instances of racism because of cowardice, complacency, and a misplaced sense of politeness. The very foundations of my way of life are in white supremacy, and the list of microaggressions I have committed and will no doubt continue to commit in spite of my good intentions for as long as I'm alive is virtually endless.
Okay. So wait, okay.
So I just wanted to ask, like, white people having a culture is white supremacy and racist?
Yeah, because they stole everything from the black people, because the black people invented all the culture, and white people always just stole it. Black people invented rock and roll, black people invented the blues, black people invented the goddamn guitar, but nobody ever really talks about that.
Yikes, yeah. No, I mean, just the idea that, well, it seems like she has a problem with, any institution that has whites in it. Like, as the majority. Like,
she doesn't have a problem. She's acting like she has a problem.
Signaling that way for approval.
Well, and then also by making the standard microaggression, it's original sin. It's her original sin narrative. That's what she's presented here.
Yeah, but I mean, she presented or like compiled all of the social justice fortunes from her social justice fortune cookies and made an essay out of them, like a jigsaw.
Yeah, but the notion, that America was built on slave labor, that's very, very popular. That is something that most people won't challenge, and it is a very, very Marxist narrative.
Yeah.
It's basically labor theory of value, right? Oh, these slaves worked so hard, therefore the value is based on that, and it's very silly because, like we were talking about earlier, basically you can take the proportion or amount of slavery that a country had, and now it's more poor the more slavery it had, basically. Like, the country with the least amount of slaves recovered the best from it, because slavery was not an economic boon. It was absolutely a detriment.
Yeah, it was like something like 3% of the economy was coming from slave labor, or something like that. I don't remember exactly.
It was on the South, too, yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess I'll read the next part. How long
This is
is
pretty
this? Hold
long. We
on.
should I just read through it really quickly?
Yeah, you could do that.
Okay. Does this mean I should give up trying to fight my own colonizing racist impulses? On the contrary, I see this as a call to fight harder, to never stop working on this part of myself. But at no point, now or in the future, will I ever be entitled to declare this work done. I will never be able to truthfully announce, there is not one racist bone in my body, as though racism is something that could be surgically removed. My racism is a chronic inherited condition. I can medicate the symptoms, and with effort, I can even loosen its grip around my soul, but it will always be part of me, like green eyes or a predilection for dumb puns.
Okay, let me talk.
I'm pissed off that wasn't a pun. Why did she have predilection in there? She could have made that like a dumb pun.
Okay, so
that is religious speech right there.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. You can tell she believes that she will always be racist because I think she really is racist. And her entire life is just this game of pleasantries trying to hide that. Because you could tell by the way that she talked to me when I communicated with her, she was so just horrible and so disingenuous and so insulting. And like, she was like, because I think I even got to the point where I was like, well, how do you know what's a microaggression and what's racist and what's blah, blah, blah better than I do? We're both white people, right? Because I don't think that the South Park is, and then she was like, well, I think she said, like, I've read a lot of, and I think I might have even said, like, she might have shared an article with me that was like, shut up and listen, white boy, or some crap. And I was like, okay, I've read plenty of feminist articles. What makes you more qualified to tell me, about these things? And then she was like, well, I've been in sit-down roundtable discussions with women of color who are intersectional feminists. And I was like, yeah, and it's like, okay, at the time I had friends that were, black and stuff who were intersectional feminists, and they steadily got worse and worse as people, so I stopped being friends with them. But I was like, well, I have too. Like, what, like, I just don't agree with any of this crap. And she was like, her response was to say, that's not true. I don't believe you. The real discussions happen in female spaces where men aren't invited. And it was just like this game. Like, it was like, oh, shut up. And so here's the thing. I think that anybody who is like that, like somebody who's pretending that they saw the light and that they can tell you, and they're trying so hard, and it's so obviously, like, logically fallacious and simply untrue, that person is racist. For me, it's like, how did I, start unpacking my racism? Well, I had a lot of black friends in elementary school. And then I learned how to be friends with black people and be comfortable around them. And, some of them were very talented and smart. And I don't even call myself racist to self-flatulate because of that, So, sorry. Okay, do you want to keep going?
Yeah, there's a few paragraphs left here. Let's see what else. Let's see what other wisdom she has to bestow upon us. Because the more of this we read, the more burden we're taking off of black people, right? Now, if you're like many well-meaning white people, you might be feeling defensive at the implication that, like me, you might be a white supremacist too.
No, I'm nothing like you.
Yeah, right? I've noticed that there is an ugly tendency for liberal, well-meaning white people to take loud umbrage at being called racist or a white supremacist. No shit, Sherlock. Like, are you kidding me?
No, but I think that this was written a few years ago. At this point, no, they love it. They all say they are.
All right. And I can understand the reaction when
Duerst was saying something.
Yeah, sorry, what?
I just wanted to say that people need to just roundly reject the premise. Like, just whenever someone's accused of an ism, they just need to reject the entire premise. They need to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I totally agree. Because once you start to say, like, oh, the Democrats are the real racists, you're accepting this premise that, like, racism is the number one most important thing. And I'm at the point where I'm just like, I don't even care. I don't even care about racism. Like,
you should just be like, I don't accept the premise of the idea that racism is a huge deal right now.
Okay, but wait, when it comes to the Democrats, I just want to say, like, they are really, really racist. Like, think about a party that's...
Yeah, but that's the least bad thing about them.
No. They don't like racial minorities. They, like, put hot sauce in their purse and try to, at this point, they're trying to blatantly bribe black people by offering them reparations because they know they don't got nothing else. Think about how degrading that is. Like, yeah, we don't have anything for you. Reparations, I swear we'll get it done. Like,
I think like 60 to 70% of folks definitely support that. So I guess the Dems know their constituency, or at least a decent, important chunk of it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what it looks like. I think everyone's thinking cash money. That is opposed to it, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think people just need to, not cede the linguistic territory to progressives by accepting, the idea that racism is like a bold, present danger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, to signal, like, with based black MAGA characters, like, cozying up to those characters to signal to the left that you're not racist, like the TPUSA types. That's pretty cringe, isn't it? Like, that's pretty fucking... I don't know.
Yeah, but it does serve a purpose, though. Like, it does change people's minds. Like, personally, I would have never considered...
Entry point.
Well, personally, I would have never considered becoming an actual MRA if I didn't see, like, a number of great females doing it. Like, Karen Strong, the Honey Badgers, Janice Fiamengo were, starting to really get some views on YouTube right when I started really watching, like, anti-feminist content. And I identified with those people the most because they actually were exploring the issues of males and not just making fun of dumb feminists, but saying, "Oh, I'm not an MRA," and it's true, they weren't MRAs,
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just, just gotta de-emphasize the racialist narrative, I think, when it comes from the left.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, one of the things I will say is that I don't say Democrats are the real racists. I don't like that framing. I do say, well, the Democratic Party is really racist.
Right. I mean, they're race hustlers a lot of the time. That's what I observe.
Yeah.
Or a race vulture. That's the term I think Devin Tracy was trying to pimp out earlier this year. Race vultures, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, the racial tensions that we're dealing with right now, like, the ones that are still going on, the threats of white supremacy, blah, 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 that's a slight change, but it's the same crap as the Black Lives Matter movement, and that stuff started when Obama came out and gave a speech about Trayvon Martin. He was like, "Oh, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon." And it's like, okay, and he was shot by some Latino dude who wasn't a cop. What's your point? Like, what? Like, and from there, the allegations of white supremacy came non-stop, and they still haven't stopped. But now they're trying to be a little bit more specific about it and call them Trump supporters. And so, like, we can actually point to recent things, because prior to 2012, nobody ever talked about racism. It just, like, wasn't on the agenda.
I mean, it was on the agenda, but, like, it was, in terms of the debate, certainly did not involve, if you are white, you are automatically an inborn racist, and your opinion is less valid. That was definitely not a chunk, that was not a part of the conversation prior. Like, that is actually when I started noticing this whole thing, was around 2012.
Oh, yeah. Well, 2012 was the year Obama legalized the usage of propaganda on the American people.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I have a video about it. It's called "Why Does No One Talk About Obama's Propaganda?"
Huh.
Yeah, no one knows that practically.
So you mean like legalized propaganda, like
the United States government's ability to create propaganda. They can literally create hoaxes.
right?
And they can, fund things like everyday feminism and MTV's Decoded, which, let's face it, like, how else did MTV's Decoded happen? Because the Clintons have long been tied to MTV. They had the Rock the Boat thing in the early 90s. That's how Clinton got elected, was appealing to youth voters. And so, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty
Yeah,
naughty.
it's called the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012. It was actually technically it was passed in 2013.
Yeah,
January 2nd.
It went into law in 2013, and then they probably were already doing it, is what I would guess. But they knew that they just weren't going to get in trouble because it wasn't officially into law. And I think that the government's probably done that. Was doing. I mean, there was some things that they were doing that. They would create things that look like news segments and have them air during commercial sessions, but they weren't like the news. And I think they were doing that during the Bush administration. So yeah, it's some pretty crazy crap that happened that it really changed everything. Like I'm pretty sure that they were funding everyday feminism. Remember how that blog Everyday Feminism was just everywhere for a while, like all through like probably 2014 through 2016. It was just popping up.
Yeah.
The more everyday
I just
feminist.
assumed they blocked me or something.
No, they just get very few shares. I think that website had a lot of money because they didn't have any ads on it at all.
Yeah, and the more the more everyday feminism articles you see getting shared around, the more of these these chicks, like these drunkard waste-oid chicks you see that just denigrate men's issues and talk shit on white people and Western civilization and use the word gentrification a lot when they don't even know what it means. Like those types.
Yeah, it's like they're like, okay, maybe I'm not as cool as like what's that girl? She's in movies now. She was a singer. She was in Moonlight. She was in. Okay. I'm not as cool as Azealia Banks, but I'm still like not a man. So I'll just talk crap about men all the time. How about that?
Right.
Yeah.
Hashtag men trash.
Yeah, and it was because fucking. Like they read every Everyday Feminism article, and everything on Everyday Feminism is untrue. Like the actual points that they're trying to make, like it's all untrue. Often, like more than often, the reverse of what's true. So, well, and here's the thing. The reason that I came to realize that it's probably being funded by the Democrats in some capacity or another, like, it may not be coming from them, might be coming from George Soros or, it's one of these things. The reason that I realized was because I read this comic that was during the summer of, I think, 2016 or something, and the previous year had been the Bernie Sanders, who I actually supported at the time. I don't know what your political leanings are, Duerst.
It just kind of boils down to now he's out of the race because he has a heart attack, but it also, he signals to the anti-white guy crowd and the BLM crowd like way too much for me to.
I hate him now. I've hated him for a very long time.
Right.
But I did in 2016.
So if it weren't for that, I would be a lot more enthused about supporting him. But
Well, I don't like communism and socialism now because I've learned a lot about it. So, but okay. So here's the thing. Remember that Black Lives Matter interruption?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So they had this comment that was called, "Dear White America, you're all responsible for the rise of Trump." And the point of the comic was to say that all white people are the cause of this because they each perpetuate racism, or they turn the blind eye when their friends say something, or they blah blah blah. And one of the panels showed on the left a depiction of a Trump rally, and on the right a depiction of people carrying Sanders signs at a rally. And at the Trump rally, they're all yelling, "Build the wall," which technically is not a racist statement. There's nothing about race in that. Walls are inanimate objects. And so that was supposed to mean that those people are racist. In the Sanders one, there was this woman yelling that she was carrying a Sanders sign and yelling "boo" or something, and then there was people in the background and they were yelling "boo," and then one of them said, "Go home, thugs," and one of them said, "Get off the stage, monkeys." And I was like, that did not happen at the Sanders rally. Like, because that was in Seattle, and Seattle people are even more PC than people in San Francisco, because Seattle is like quiet, upper middle class white people that are terrified of ever being called racist. And so they're really, really passive aggressive, and they are all racist, but their entire game is not letting you know that, So it was just hilarious to me, because I was like, wait, that's not true. And I knew people who worked there, and I talked to them about it, and they denied it, but it seemed like there was truth to it. And then by their reactions, they freaked out because they didn't notice it, and then they were like, "Oh my God." I think they were like, "Oh my God, he's right." Like the one chick posted a picture of herself drinking wine a few hours later and was like, "I almost had a nervous breakdown tonight, just so you know," because she was a Sanders supporter, and she was an actual editor at Everyday Feminism. And then the other thing was, once the election was over, Trump was in office, it took just a few moments for them to be begging for donations from their supporters, and they had ads on their site, which they hadn't for a long time. And then they got very, very few views and everything. So it seemed like the budget had been taken away. Okay, let's keep going though.
Actually, yeah, the next part of this kind of ties into something we had discussed earlier, which is what the idea of like, what is the picture of the white supremacist, right? And she says, after all, the first time someone called me a white supremacist in an online forum, I found it ridiculous. After all, I'm from Texas. I know real white supremacists.
Wait. No, but aren't you skipping?
Did I?
Because I think
okay.
Now
right,
if
I'll
you're
go
like
back. Okay.
yeah.
And I can understand the reaction. When I started paying attention to social justice conversations a few short years ago.
Wait, no, but you are skipping. You are skipping. There's the part that's like, now if you're like many well-meaning white people, you might be feeling defensive in the
I already read that. That's the last thing.
Oh.
Okay, so well-meaning white people take a loud umbrage at being called racist or a white supremacist.
Okay.
And I can understand the reaction. When I started paying attention to social justice conversations a few short years ago, I also found some of the language shocking to my sensibilities. The first time someone called me a white supremacist in an online forum, I found it ridiculous. After all, I'm from Texas. I know real white supremacists, the kind of people who watch Fox News and sport Confederate flags on their pickup trucks. The idea that there was no difference between me and those people, or even that we might be perceived as different shades of the same shitty gradient, struck me as absurd.
It's like...
But one...
hold on a second. It's like, bitch, the standard to you for someone being like a full-fledged, crazy, foaming at the mouth white supremacist is watching Fox News? Are you serious? Like...
And even, like, caring about the Confederate flag, like, if you're somebody who sees a Confederate flag and gets offended, like, you're weak. You're weak and you should be,
Yeah.
ended in Minecraft. In Minecraft.
Well, yeah, just say the state should do it. I know that you're anti-statist, but, you know.
Yeah, right.
To say the state is the only legitimate arbiter of force ever to do something like that.
Wait, to do what?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. To do nothing in particular, but specifically in Minecraft.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, frankly, I'm more offended by the American flag than the Confederate flag. But I guess we don't have to get into that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because it's a bunch of states?
Well, it's a lot of us in the libertarian circle, we kind of look at the Civil War as not really a civil war, and that the North basically aggressed.
Okay. So, but once I began unpacking the implications of the words white supremacy, I realized that there really is no better way to describe the system of murder and exploitation that benefits some of us at the expense of others. And there is no better way to describe my behavior when I reinforce those oppressive dynamics with my actions. I realize this is a bleak reality to absorb, but I'm so good at stating it. But in comparison to the suffering on which we built our entire lives, and which we continue to perpetuate, even in our finest moments, it's a really small thing to come to terms with. Lady, you seriously couldn't have stated that in any worse of a way for getting people to actually understand what you might allegedly be getting at. Like, that was all about self-degradation.
So, have you ever asked one of these characters to specifically, like, lay out and itemize, like, exactly, specifically how, like, I personally am benefiting from the supposed system? You're at the systemic system of structural institutions.
Yeah. No, they would never do it. That's when they freak out and they say, like, no, that's for you to figure out. And they would just say, well, you have white privilege, you have male privilege, and then they might say examples of white privilege would be, never having to worry that the cops are going to arrest you if you call them, or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, not if you're a dude who has a girlfriend who's beating the crap out of him with a frying pan. He will get arrested every time in many, many states. So that's not true at all.
I mean, I know that, the whole BLM question, the whole, like, racist cop, hands up, don't shoot. We all know that that's BS anyway, so.
Yeah.
Like, that's some cringe, like, 2015. Like, if you're, like, a leftist who still believes that fucking narrative at this point, like, there may be no reaching you, like, at all,
Yeah.
But I think the best thing to do, though, is to focus on people who are, like, in the middle and sort of have as many examples of these people floundering in the face of that question as possible to show to the people in the middle so that they, never go over to that side. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I do on my YouTube channel, I would say.
Yeah. That's what I try to do, for sure, as well.
Yeah. So...
that middle mass awakening.
Responding to accusations of racism with defensiveness is a common way that white people make our own emotions the center of the conversation, thereby creating the all too familiar vicious circle of a conversation that goes nowhere. Social psychologists call this bizarre behavior self-justification. It is a natural human tendency to rationalize our own actions, to minimize the discomfort of cognitive dissonance by maintaining an internal narrative in which we basically play the good guy. And so we often defend ourselves rather than listening, lashing out at the criticism until it leaves us alone with our ego intact. Okay, they should really come up with an actual martial, like an intellectual martial art for her like Aikido version of like still sort of doing exactly what she's talking about, recognizing it, but just doing it with subtext, you know?
So was that like a white fragility passage, basically?
Yeah, absolutely.
To some degree, yeah.
Right, yeah,
but it's funny because she's literally doing exactly that.
Yeah,
right? She's made an internal narrative where she's playing the good guy to rationalize all of this cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. No, the funny thing about it is that she probably thinks she's writing on the backs of great giants in the past, like Robin DiAngelo. That's the white fragility book lady.
Oh yeah, she's the book tour lady. She's the school marmying, hectoring, sort of like turkey gullet neck, looking like haggard. Oof. Yeah, but no, the white fragility thing is just the biggest gaslighting tactic ever. Dude.
Yeah,
It's not that you're distressed because we're accusing you of being something that could potentially be life ruining or career ruining
or life threatening
It's because you have white fragility to confront your inner white toxicity.
It's like slapping. Like I've often described crazy feminists on the internet as the type of people that are so crazy that like. You could be on a stage debating them, and they would just get really, really mad halfway through and walk over and just slap you across the face and then walk back to their little podium. And you'd be like, what the actual hell? You just literally slapped me. And they'd be like, no, I didn't. And they're like, yeah, you did. Everybody in the audience saw you. And they're like, no.
White male complaining about getting slapped in the face while women can't access reproductive health care.
Well, no, like, I mean, that would be appropriate.
Yeah, if I can't eat a fucking baby, sorry, I said the F word. If I can't eat a baby, how dare you call me out for slapping the patriarchy and you getting in the way?
Yeah. No, but, okay, so, sorry, I'm talking kind of quick because my friend is coming over 10 minutes or so. But, so the thing about the my little metaphor for just how crazy these people are, after they slap you, they walk back to the podium and you're like, you just slapped me, and they're like, no, you didn't, and they're like, no, you just slapped me. The whole audience saw, but the audience can't talk or something, I don't know. And so they're like, and she's like, are you sure? Because I don't remember slapping you. And they're like, no, and she's like, are you wait. Tell me who slapped you again? And you're like, you. And she's like, could you point at them? And then you point, and she ducks. And then says, oh, see, let the record show that he was pointing to that guy backstage. Like, it's that kind of irrationality that we're dealing with. I don't know if it perfectly lines up. But it is kind of like that, though. Like, pretending that you're clever by, like, obviously doing this and then, like, trying to blame all the other people when, like, clearly this is your own internal monologue of feeling guilty about the fact that you are a racist. You, Emily, are a racist. So, okay, Space Fan, you want to read?
Well, I think she would agree, right?
No.
I know.
She would say, no, you're a racist compared to you. I'm not racist at all. Like, that's what she would say.
Well, she's a responsible racist. She's one who's got it under control, apparently.
Yeah.
Racism is not a quality that very many of us would put into our idealized versions of self. And so the idea that we are capable of being racist, or that we might even be white supremacists deep down in our kind, well-meaning souls, is something we have a very deep aversion to confronting head-on. It's much more pleasant to imagine that the real racists are somewhere else, like Idaho, or like the show your cousin Cody goes to every spring. But pointing a finger at everyone but ourselves is an exercise in self-righteousness, not an antidote to the deep foundation of white supremacy underlying and permeating our entire culture.
But that's entire...
good.
Okay. Sorry.
I mean, there's not nothing here. Like, the idea is, like if you see a larger social problem, it makes sense to start with yourself, right? like in theory, I can kind of see some value to that, but I don't think
she's not actually doing this work. Like
we're not
she's
just
not
using this as an honest approach to that.
Yeah, because I've interacted with her, and she is a flaming hypocrite. Like, she just says whatever she thinks sounds best at the time, and she's vile and vicious. So.
Well, let's hear what she thinks about herself, because she's about to tell us.
Okay.
I am a good, kind, smart, well-meaning person who happens to be a white supremacist. I didn't ask to be born this way, but I was. Coming to terms with white supremacy means being able to reconcile these seemingly paradoxical truths. It's hard to hate something and simultaneously hate that the thing you hate is part of you, but it is necessary. Let's be clear about one thing. Coming to terms with the fact that I will never be fully free of my white supremacy is not the same thing as accepting a burden of shame, guilt, or self-pity. Isn't it, though?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Well, no, it's not for her, because, like, self-flagellating a little teeny bit like this is how she stays from keeping guilty. Because
no one is asking for my shame, nor yours.
Yeah, well, you're getting it,
aren't
they? Yeah.
Self-pity and shame are selfish, narcissistic responses to the problem of white supremacy, and if you're experiencing these emotions in the context of a conversation about race, it's likely a sign that you're centering your own feelings at the expense of someone else's. See, this is the thing, for her, everything's a zero-sum game, right? Slavery's a zero-sum game. Your feelings are a zero-sum game. If there's black-on-black violence, she benefits from that somehow, right? Like, if you have, like, a stable white family existing, somehow that family benefits from black people shooting each other in the streets over drugs, right? Like that's literally what you have to believe in order for her construction here to make any sense.
The centering your feelings, like how dare you center.
Okay. So my friend is here. I'm gonna have to go in a second.
The idea of like centering your feelings, how dare you? That's more of that gaslighting. It's like, well, yeah, I'm gonna center my feelings about potentially losing like a lot of things in my life, like my job, for instance. Of course, the accusation of being called a racist is, can punch a crater in your life.
Yeah, and that's one reason I think we need to basically destigmatize racism, because the idea that it's this number one big epic important thing is just it's really completely stupid. But
yeah, absolutely.
So Duerst, I don't think we ever really got around to you like kind of introducing your channel to anybody who maybe follows us but isn't aware of it. I know that since you're in my Discord, you post your videos there, so I think anybody who's in my Discord maybe has an idea. And I know you do a lot of like on the ground talking to people and going to these events, which is very cool, right? Because so many people on YouTube are, they're like me. I kind of sit in my room and I kind of like have my thoughts and just put my thoughts in a video. So it's refreshing to watch something that's kind of more, on the ground and talking to real people. And you talked about reaching out to people kind of in the middle. But did you want to maybe tell us a little bit about, I guess in general, like how you got started with the videos and what the overall focus is, just that sort of thing?
Let's see. I think I got started when Milo was first blowing up. It was the DePaul University freakout. You might remember that. That was probably back in like 2016, actually. Yeah, that was like the first big set of videos that I got, just walking around protest of Milo, asking like, hey, why do you dislike this dude? And it was just more of that, like, it's not my job to explain to you. Like, it was more of that, trendy intersectional stuff that we keep hearing, but it was like one of my first big times of like encountering a bunch of people who feel if just there's a feeling that they're all possessed by this ideology. So I don't know, and then why I do it, just to expose to the, I guess you could call them the middle mass, like what's really going on, not like the CNN narrative about what's going on, like, oh, anti-fascist protesters. Like, no, that's not what they are. They're like, I'm going to show you what they are. They're just aggressively
violent. That's the crazy thing. Like the media is so negligent that just going out on the street with a camera and talking to people, you're gonna get, I think, a better pulse on reality, and it's so strange that we're in this world where there's all this media everywhere, more websites than ever, more news channels than ever, and yet they're giving us less information. It's kind of like a new pseudo dark age, right? And I guess the YouTubers, it's like Tim Pool somehow has become like the standard for journalism, right? And like the alternative sphere, which is so funny because it's just like a Happa and a beanie walking around with a camera, you know?
Yeah, you'll be more informed on a whole set of issues if you watch a guy like him. Maybe not necessarily just him, but like you know what I mean. Like if you're subscribed to a series of these types of guys that are either on the ground or like webcam in their room, like commenting on stuff, I think you'll be more informed on a set of issues than if you watch CNN or Fox or MSNBC or what have you. I mean, it's just like it's more raw, it's more uncut, you know. And I know you like it. I know you like it uncut, Space Pen.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, everyone should, right? That's
right. Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's Yeah. Honestly, I don't trust Tim Pool. I just feel like something's fishy with like the way he's promoted or something. I can't really pin it down, but
it's the whole like I know for me it's the whole it's the whole Dave it's the whole Dave Rubin like I'm a liberal who thinks that the left is gone insane too, like hey particularly conservative Inc. look at me, give me money, like kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very hello fellow conservatives, and I'm like
Right. He'll say that he's on the left, but sort of signal to the GOP kind of boomer crowd a little bit.
Since you mentioned Rubin, I remember he had Thomas Sowell on, or Thomas Sowell, sorry. I think it was last year, and I saw him tweet about it. Like I saw the tweet when it was like happening, like one of those rare moments, and I responded, and Dave Rubin said like, I'm so honored to have the chance to speak with Thomas Sowell. He's one of my major influences for the longest time. And I'm sitting there like, how is he one of your influences if you were ever leftist? That doesn't make sense. And then he's like, well, tune in and you'll find out. And I did tune in, and they never explained that. And I'm like pissed to this day. I'm like, no, like something's up here. Like this doesn't make any sense.
Well, Thomas Sowell has some interesting takes in black rednecks and white liberals. So, it's a book of his that's pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, I could not really see someone on the left being particularly enthused about Mr. Sowell. I couldn't see that. But yeah, I think
what could you possibly take away that's gonna let you keep your leftist paradigm intact? You know what I mean? Like.
Maybe people like Tim Pool or Rubin don't know that they didn't know or continue to not know that there's someone on the right, or maybe it is just sort of a pandering, cynical cash-in. I don't know.
You know, it's all possible. It's all speculation. But yeah, so I don't know if Prince must be talking to his friend. I don't know if. Yeah, there's not really much left in this article. I think we've kind of gone through the rest of it. The other thing I was going to mention, and this is just funny, some men performed a puja to end feminism in India.
Oh, beautiful. Base.
And I guess, yeah, it's like an Indian like priest ritual to try to purify. And I love it because now we have like feminist witches trying to put a hex on Trump on one side, and then on the other side we have like our Indian priest trying to purge the evil. So but that was a Vice article. We don't need to read it. I think the headline is the article, to be honest.
Like 9th level clerics on our side, bro.
That's right. Well, and the flavor is so on point, right? Like the feminists totally would have these cackling purple-haired witches. And then we have respectable clerics.
Dude, we should have paladins on our side, bro.
I guess we got Aiden Paladin. Does she count?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, she was at MythCon when those greaseball looking dudes told me to get off the sidewalk. That was pretty interesting. Somebody called it a bomb.
We saw her at ICMI. I just kind of said hi to her. I didn't really have a chance to talk to her.
Nice. Yeah, she's pretty fucking sharp. Pretty sharp, that one.
Yeah, I haven't kept up well with some of the videos, but it is fun to have someone kind of going through some of the psychological aspect of things.
Is she one of the people whose professional life has been kind of affected by being involved in sort of YouTube sphere, like the whole dissident right kind of thing? Or
I can't imagine it hasn't been. I think that she's in like graduate studies in psychology.
Right.
I think she said she wrote one of her theses like about the subject that Anita Sarkeesian was going over and came to the opposite conclusion. Because of course, Anita Sarkeesian was arguing that people want representations in video games that reflect their own characteristics. And she basically went through, and her argument is that people dissociate with video games, so they're not associating like their own personal characteristics with their character. And a part of the appeal of video games is to be something different, Like that's what I do. And I play an MMO. I like to make like a really, really short character. With gender, I kind of do 50-50. Because I don't know, it's just different. The sprites look different or whatever, Like I make the characters look. I put like really fat characters too, because I'm tall and like kind of thinnish. So I feel like really short, really fat characters and stuff, Like.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like a gender or race is not the most important thing. I mean, you could list off like your Resident Evils or your like that has plenty of lamans, But yeah, they'll never pay attention to that. They'll only pay attention to like what's that fucking like big tit volleyball game, Dead or Alive or some shit? Or is
yeah.
They'll pay attention to shit like that and act like it represents the norm, which is completely just more disingenuousness.
Well, and then to bring it back to when we were talking about racism earlier, I reject the whole premise, Like, so what if people want big titty physics, in their game? Like,
right. Yeah, fuck them, dude.
Absolutely.
Did you disappear, Prince?
I'm not sure. Let's see. What was the other big story? Was the thing about eating? Oh, you know what? Okay, there was the eating babies thing, but also Patricia had mentioned this, and I told her I would bring it up. Have you been following the Vic Mignogna case?
Oh, is he like the anime voice actor that got falsely accused?
Yeah, he was the voice actor for Brawly, right? And he was being Me Too'd. And what's different about this one is, of course, he's actually gone after them for defamation, which most people don't do. But he has so much support that he has, this big war chest that they've amassed that they're using to fight this lawsuit. And the recent update is that the judge has ruled very, very disfavorably overall. They've basically thrown out everything that he's claimed. But there's a silver lining here. Since the judge threw out everything, this means that he can appeal it. And I guess the way that it works is like if only one thing had stuck, then they'd have to continue all of their proceedings and wouldn't have the ability to appeal until much later. So the fact that the judge threw everything out means that now he can appeal it. And it looks very open and shut. It looks like this judge did a really awful job ruling because they didn't handle the case the way it's supposed to. It was a prima facie case. And the way those work is like you look at the case and any matter of fact, you assume that it's true in favor of the plaintiff in order to decide whether or not you can proceed. And he was like speculating on the truth or untruth of particular claims or whatever. Like basically the way he handled it wasn't appropriate. So it looks like once it's reviewed on appeal that Vic should be winning that. So
that's for me that comes back to why charges of isms need to be like thrown by the wayside, because whenever these types of people infiltrate fandoms or scenes, whatever the fuck you want to call it, shit like this, like just all kinds of fucked up shit happens. So whenever someone voices opposition to people like this coming into the communities that they like, they're called ists and isms. And I think that that's another fucking reason to add to the pile of why you should just dismiss any charges of that.
Yeah, well, and there's a couple of issues with it, right? Like I think the big one that like the people within the MRM and like the manosphere would always point out is that these sorts of crimes, which they're very feminine crimes, right? The false accusation, like this sort of thing. These are the sorts of crimes that just go under the radar and aren't really. There's no consequence for it, you know. And you see this kind of across the board. Like there was that recent story about the girl hoax hating herself and pretending that a bunch of white kids, who she named, cut off all her dreads, and it turns out she's lying. Yeah. And you know her punishment's going to be what, like therapy, right? Or you know the chick who, I forgot what university it is. She you know like had sex with a bunch of dudes in a bathroom, and then when her boyfriend sees her, you know, coming home late at night, she says, "Oh, I was raped, lol." And then she doesn't realize like people are going to take that seriously, and then eventually she just gets counseling when all these men were, you know, on, you know, looking at 20 years in prison, right? So
it's basically like Brock Turner too, isn't it?
Hey,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a crazy story. That's a crazy story, and I've heard about that too, and I think that there's videos about it, and you guys can chat about it in the Skype call, but I'm going to have to stop this stream because I'm keeping my friend waiting. I have to get ready a little bit. So, Duerst, it was wonderful to have you on. I wish we could do the full 2 hours so I could get to know you a bit better, but unfortunately, I gotta go.
Cool, right? Let's do it some other time.
Yeah, but no, it was really cool to talk to you. You seem like someone I would be friends with, IRL. So.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, for sure, man. And just anyone watching, just check me out. Duerst, the WUERST, just on pretty much every platform. Got like 650 some odd videos of all kinds of crap. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it is quite interesting. Definitely, it's always good to know. It's always good to know about these channels that like video Antifa stuff, because it's really hard to find them. You know. Especially for a video maker.
It's perfect fodder to show like friends of yours who are maybe a little bit skeptical. Maybe they downplay a lot of like social justice stuff, or maybe they're sort of uninitiated. But my content is perfect for those types of people, like to show to boomers or like, you know, just people who are not in the loop. So
yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe if you're somebody who is thinking about attending some of these events, you have a lot of great footage of kind of what to expect, what things are going to look like, and what some of these confrontations look like.
That too.
Yep.
That too.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be encouragement for other people to join me, so I don't feel as like fucking blown out there. Yeah, I would like to see more.
Put in your application. He needs a posse.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, I'm gonna officially take us off air, but you guys can talk. It was great chatting with you as always, Spacepan. Wonderful that you guys were listening. I wish I could have seen the chat more. Bye.